History books often celebrate famous inventors and powerful empires, but they rarely mention the silent exchange of ideas that truly built our world. The most transformative technologies of the ancient world did not originate in palaces or universities. They traveled secretly along forgotten trade routes. By the end of this journey, you will understand the 24 hidden innovations that connected civilizations and secretly shaped everything from our daily comforts to global power structures. How did a simple metal loop revolutionize warfare across continents? And what secret knowledge allowed merchants to navigate vast oceans using only the stars? What single piece of ancient technology do you think had the most profound impact on our modern world? A simple metal loop hanging from a saddle changed the world. That is the power of the stirrup. Before its arrival, a warrior on horseback was a precarious thing. He could ride to battle, but fighting from the saddle was a clumsy affair, a constant struggle against gravity and momentum. He could not put the full force of his body into a spear, thrust, or draw a powerful bow without fear of tumbling from his mount. The stirrup, a technology perfected by the nomadic peoples of the Asian steppes, solved this problem with elegant simplicity. It gave a rider a stable platform. He could now stand in his saddle, bracing his entire weight against these metal loops, freeing his hands to wield heavy lances or fire volleys of arrows with stunning accuracy while at a full gallop. This was not just an improvement, it was a revolution in motion. Think of the advantage this gave an army. A force of stirrup-equipped cavalry could strike with the speed of the wind and the impact of a hammer. This technology did not stay secret for long. It began to travel not with conquering armies at first, but with traders and craftsmen along the sprawling network of routes that crisscrossed Eurasia. As it moved west, its impact rippled through societies. In Europe, it enabled the rise of the heavily armored knight, a warrior so effective he became the cornerstone of medieval warfare and the foundation of a new social class. The power of these knights rested literally upon the stirrup. In Persia and the Middle East, it created a new era of mobile horse archers who could dominate vast territories. A single, humble innovation carried on the backs of trade camels had quietly rewritten the rules of power across continents. It makes you wonder what other everyday objects hiding in plain sight once held such world-altering potential. While warriors secured their power with stirrups, a quieter revolution was unfolding in the libraries and marketplaces of the world. Think of the immense weight of knowledge in the ancient world, literally carved in stone or written on brittle papyrus scrolls and costly parchment made from animal skins. A single book could require the skins of an entire herd of sheep, placing written wisdom far beyond the reach of most people. Then came a secret from the East, one that would build an invisible highway for the human mind. That secret was paper, developed in China over 2,000 years ago. This technology did not leap across continents overnight. It seeped slowly westward, carried by merchants and monks along the dusty trails of the Silk Road. Its arrival in the bustling intellectual hubs of the Islamic world, like Baghdad, was a moment of profound transformation. Scholars there began using this new, durable, and astonishingly affordable material to copy and preserve the great works of the Greeks, the Persians, and the Indians. Knowledge, once so heavy and fragile, suddenly became light and portable. A single caravan could now carry the equivalent of an entire library. Can you picture the scene? A scholar in Baghdad meticulously transcribing the works of Aristotle onto smooth, sturdy paper sheets, his work destined not for a single, locked chest in a royal palace, but for many copies that could travel to Cairo, to Cordoba, and beyond. This was the true power of paper. It democratized learning. It was no longer the exclusive property of the elite. For the first time, a merchant could keep detailed ledgers, a poet could afford to distribute their work, and a city could maintain vast archives of its laws and history. This technological migration did not stop in the Middle East. It eventually crept into Europe, where it would provide the physical foundation for the printing press and ignite the fires of the Renaissance and the scientific revolution. The ideas of Galileo and Newton spread so quickly precisely because their words were printed not on a handful of precious parchments, but on thousands of sheets of affordable paper. A single innovation in material science, born in one civilization and perfected through trade, ended up connecting human thought across the globe, accelerating progress for everyone. It makes you wonder what modern idea, traveling along our digital trade routes today, might be laying the groundwork for the next great leap in human understanding. While paper carried the words of philosophers and poets, another instrument was guiding ships across trackless seas. An Arab navigator stands on the deck of his dhow as it cuts through the dark waters of the Indian Ocean. In his hands, he holds a masterpiece of brass and precision, an astrolabe. This was not a simple tool. It was a portable observatory, a map of the heavens, and a clock all in one. By measuring the angle of the sun or a known star above the horizon, a skilled user could determine their latitude, telling them how far north or south they had traveled. This knowledge transformed the open ocean from a terrifying void into a navigable highway. The genius of the astrolabe, however, lies in its own journey. Its foundations were laid in ancient Greece with concepts of spherical astronomy. Persian scholars then added complex mathematical scales and projections. Finally, in the hands of Islamic scientists and artisans, these ideas were synthesized and refined into the beautiful, intricate instrument that the navigator held. It was a product of centuries of cross-cultural conversation, a physical embodiment of shared knowledge traveling along the very routes it would later help expand. Can you grasp the confidence this gave a merchant captain? No longer was he solely reliant on following coastlines or reading the waves. He could now point his ship directly across the deep, trusting the stars and this brilliant device to guide him to a distant port. This new precision supercharged maritime trade, creating reliable links between the spice islands of Southeast Asia, the wealthy empires of India, the bustling ports of the Middle East, and eventually the kingdoms of Europe. The astrolabe did not just chart stars, it charted the course of human connection, enabling the exchange of goods and ideas on a scale never before possible. It makes you wonder what modern tool, born from a fusion of different technologies, is right now quietly guiding us toward our next undiscovered world. Deep in the hearts of the Indus Valley, a different kind of alchemy was taking place. Metalworkers were not just melting ore, they were mastering it. Their great innovation was not a single metal, but the creation of sophisticated bronze alloys. By carefully mixing copper with tin, they produced a material far stronger, more durable, and sharper than anything that had come before. This knowledge of advanced metallurgy was a secret as valuable as any gem or spice, and it began to flow outward, carried by the same merchants who transported goods between empires. The techniques traveled far, reaching the great cities of Mesopotamia and beyond. One of the most revolutionary methods was lost wax casting. A sculptor would first create a model from wax, then encase it in clay. When fired, the wax would melt and drain away, leaving a perfect hollow mold into which molten bronze could be poured. This process allowed for the creation of incredibly intricate objects, from ceremonial vessels adorned with mythical beasts to weapons of stunning lethality and beauty. The spread of these metallurgical secrets fundamentally reshaped societies. A farmer with a bronze-tipped plow could till tougher soil, leading to food surpluses that supported growing populations. A soldier wielding a bronze sword held a decisive advantage on the battlefield. This shared knowledge, passed from forge to forge along trade routes, effectively propelled entire regions out of the simple Copper Age and into the more complex Bronze Age. The value was not merely in the finished product, but in the instructions themselves. The precise ratios for an alloy, the temperature control for a smelt, the technique for a perfect cast. This was the true treasure being traded. It was an invisible transfer of power, one that quietly elevated the military might, economic prosperity, and artistic grandeur of every civilization it touched. This hidden network of shared expertise makes you reconsider what we mean by trade. It was never just about objects, but about the very instructions for building a more advanced world. A mysterious needle floating in a bowl of water held the secret to conquering the open sea. This was the magnetic compass, a device born in China during the Han Dynasty. At its heart was a simple, almost magical principle: a sliver of lodestone, a naturally magnetic mineral that would align itself with the Earth's invisible magnetic field, consistently pointing toward the north. For a sailor on a merchant junk caught in a dense fog or on a featureless ocean under overcast skies, this was nothing short of a miracle. No longer did he need a glimpse of the sun or stars to know his direction. He had a constant, reliable guide resting in the palm of his hand. The power of this tool did not remain in one region for long. Arab traders, masters of the maritime routes linking the Indian Ocean and the South China Sea, were quick to recognize its profound utility. They became the crucial bridge carrying the compass technology westward. In their hands, the simple floating needle evolved into a more sophisticated dry compass, often housed in a protective box. This improved version then made its way into the Mediterranean and eventually to the port cities of Europe. Can you feel the shift in confidence this brought to every mariner? A ship's captain could now plot a straight course across deep water, far from the sight of land, with a newfound certainty. This was the key that unlocked the world. Reliable compass navigation supercharged sea trade, creating direct and far more efficient routes across the Indian Ocean. But its ultimate impact was even greater. It empowered European explorers to dare the terrifying expanse of the Atlantic, leading directly to the voyages that would define the age of discovery. The compass did not just point north, it pointed toward new continents, new cultures, and a new, interconnected era for humanity. This unassuming instrument, traveling along the very trade routes it would later expand, broke the final geographical barrier, proving that the greatest journeys begin with knowing which way to go. A deep sweetness began to spread across the ancient world, but it carried a complex and often bitter history. The story of sugar is not just about taste, it is about a technological secret that reshaped economies and destinies. It began with the tall, fibrous sugar cane, first cultivated in India. There, people learned to crush the cane and boil its juice, but the result was a coarse, dark substance, more a medicinal paste than the pure, white crystals we know today. The true transformation happened when this knowledge traveled west into the Persian Empire. Persian chemists became the alchemists of sweetness, perfecting the art of crystallization. They developed a meticulous process of repeated boiling, filtering, and cooling in conical clay molds, a method that could draw out pure, white sugar from the murky cane syrup. This was a chemical breakthrough disguised as a culinary one. The knowledge of how to plant, harvest, and most importantly, refine sugar cane did not travel alone. It moved along the vast networks of Islamic trade, reaching the Mediterranean and eventually the shores of North Africa and Southern Europe. At first, sugar was a rare luxury, a spice for the wealthy or a medicine prescribed by apothecaries. But its intense desirability created an insatiable demand. Can you comprehend the scale of change this one craving set in motion? To satisfy Europe's growing sweet tooth, a new system had to be invented. This was the plantation. Portuguese and Spanish explorers, understanding the immense value of this white gold, transplanted both the sugar cane and the sophisticated refining technology to their island colonies in the Atlantic, like Madeira and the Canary Islands, and then explosively to the Americas. The sweet technology demanded immense, brutal labor, tragically fueling the transatlantic slave trade and creating an economic model that would dominate the colonial world for centuries. A single innovation in food processing, born in one region and perfected in another, ended up redrawing the map of global agriculture and human suffering. The sugar in your kitchen today is the direct descendant of that ancient chemical knowledge, a stark reminder that the most transformative trades were not always of objects, but of the very methods for turning nature into power. The relentless power of flowing water was finally tamed by the ingenuity of the wheel. While the concept of the waterwheel was born in the Hellenistic world, its true potential was unlocked as the technology traveled. Roman engineers, encountering more advanced Persian designs through trade and military campaigns, did not just copy them, they scaled them into monumental hydraulic systems. They built massive wooden wheels, some towering over 30 feet high, and connected them to complex gears and shafts. This was not merely irrigation, this was the birth of industrial-scale mechanical power. These groaning, water-splashed giants were put to work doing the heavy labor of entire communities. They powered flour mills that could grind grain for thousands, sawmills that sliced timber with relentless efficiency, and crushing hammers that pulverized ore for Roman mines. For the first time, a civilization could harness a force of nature to run its factories. The knowledge of how to build and gear these wheels flowed along the same routes that carried grain and timber, spreading north into the forests and valleys of medieval Europe. There, Cistercian monks became masters of hydraulic engineering, using water wheels to automate their breweries, forges, and textile fulling mills. The rhythmic pounding of a water-powered hammer working cloth or forging metal became the heartbeat of early industry. This was a quiet revolution in energy, one that freed human and animal muscle for other tasks and dramatically increased what a society could produce. The water wheel laid the mechanical foundation upon which the entire concept of the factory would later be built, setting the stage for the steam engines of centuries later. It makes you wonder what natural force we are only beginning to harness today, a power that future generations might look back on as the obvious beginning of their own revolution. While metal and sugar transformed societies, another revolution was woven from threads of cotton. In the villages of ancient India, weavers achieved a mastery over cloth that the world had never seen. They worked with a plant that grew in fluffy white balls, transforming it through a series of brilliant innovations. The spinning wheel allowed a single spinner to produce thread with astonishing speed and consistency, a vast improvement over the slow, handheld spindle. On advanced looms, weavers could create fabrics of incredible delicacy, some so fine and airy they were described as woven wind, but the true magic lay in their mastery of color. Indian dyers discovered how to extract vibrant hues from plants, minerals, and even tiny insects, creating a living rainbow of reds from madder root, brilliant blues from indigo, and rich yellows from turmeric. They developed techniques for resist dyeing, using wax or ties to create the intricate patterns that would become known as calico and chintz. These were not just fabrics, they were works of art. When these textiles began traveling west along trade routes to Rome, and later to the medieval Islamic world and Europe, they caused a sensation. For people accustomed to heavy woolens and rough linens, this lightweight, breathable, and stunningly beautiful cotton was a revelation. It was a new form of comfort and status. The demand for these Indian textiles became insatiable, creating one of the world's first truly global consumer markets. The knowledge of how to create such cloth was a secret as valuable as the fabrics themselves. The spinning wheel, for instance, traveled from India to the Middle East and then into Europe, where it would later be adapted into key machinery for the Industrial Revolution. This was not a one-way street of trade. Different regions contributed their own expertise. European woolmakers shared fulling techniques, while Chinese silk weaving methods influenced patterns everywhere. This exchange of textile technology created a deep economic interdependence. A fashion trend in London could now affect the harvest in an Indian cotton field and the vats of a dyer in Turkey. The very clothes on people's backs became a silent testament to a connected world, a network of shared knowledge and mutual need that wove distant cultures tightly together. It makes you wonder what common object in your home today represents a similar web of global collaboration, its origins hidden in plain sight. A profound emptiness would become one of humanity's most powerful ideas. The concept of zero, of nothingness as a number, emerged not once but twice in distant parts of the world. Mayan astronomers used it as a placeholder in their intricate calendar systems, while in India, mathematicians like Brahmagupta went further. They did not just see an empty space, they defined zero as a tangible quantity, a number with its own properties and rules. This was a leap of abstract thought that seems simple to us now, but for ancient scholars, it was revolutionary. How could nothing be something? This intellectual breakthrough, however, was trapped in isolation until it hit the road. When Indian mathematical knowledge traveled west into the bustling intellectual centers of the Islamic Caliphate, it found fertile ground. Arab scholars like Al-Khwarizmi did not merely translate these texts, they absorbed and expanded upon them, synthesizing the Indian numeral system, which included zero with Greek geometric traditions. From this fusion, they developed entirely new fields like algebra, a word derived from the title of Al-Khwarizmi's own book. The decimal system, with zero at its heart, made calculation breathtakingly efficient compared to clumsy Roman numerals. Can you grasp the frustration of trying to multiply or divide large numbers with only Roman letters? The new system made such tasks straightforward, transforming commerce and science overnight. This package of mathematical innovation, often called Hindu-Arabic numerals, then began its slow march into Europe, carried by merchants and scholars along Mediterranean trade routes. At first, it was met with suspicion. Authorities in some European cities even banned these new numbers, fearing they would make fraud easier, but the utility was undeniable. A merchant could now manage his accounts with unprecedented speed and accuracy. An architect could calculate the stresses on a cathedral's vaults with new precision. An astronomer could chart planetary motion with equations that zero made possible. This abstract concept, born from the contemplation of nothing, ended up building the very framework for modern finance, engineering, and physics. The silent trade in numbers and calculation methods, flowing along the same paths as silk and spices, quietly equipped civilizations with the intellectual tools to reshape their world. It makes you wonder what seemingly simple idea, traveling through our digital networks today, might be laying the groundwork for the next great intellectual leap. Beneath the sun-baked earth of Persia lay a hidden river, an engineering marvel that defied the desert. This was the Kanat, a gently sloping underground aqueduct that tapped into water trapped deep within mountain foothills. Instead of allowing precious water to evaporate under the scorching sun, Persian engineers tunneled for miles, creating a chain of vertical access shafts and a subterranean channel that delivered a steady, cool flow of water directly to arid fields and settlements. This was not merely a well, it was a sustainable water supply system that could sustain a civilization for centuries. The brilliance of the Kanat was its portability, not as an object but as a concept. As Persian merchants and miners traveled west into North Africa and towards Spain, they carried the knowledge of this technology with them. In each new land, local engineers adapted the principle, digging their own vast networks of underground channels. Suddenly, oases expanded and cities bloomed in places once thought barren. Can you picture the transformation of a dry Spanish plateau, now watered by a hidden river, its surface dotted only by the circular stone mouths of the access shafts? This was just one thread in a wider web of hydraulic knowledge. Alongside the Kanat traveled other sophisticated irrigation technologies, from the water-lifting shaduf, a counter-weighted lever that could raise water from a river with minimal effort, to complex canal systems that distributed water with mathematical precision across vast farmlands. In mountainous regions like the Andes and Southeast Asia, the knowledge of terracing spread, turning steep, erosion-prone slopes into a cascading staircase of fertile paddies. These were not isolated inventions, they were a shared toolkit for survival and expansion. The spread of these water management systems through trade and cultural contact enabled societies to push the boundaries of agriculture. They could now farm lands previously considered marginal, supporting larger, denser populations. This agricultural surplus was the true foundation of urban life, freeing people from subsistence farming to become artisans, scholars, and soldiers. The silent trade in irrigation technology did more than just water crops. It watered the seeds of empire and culture, proving that the most vital resource any civilization could acquire was the knowledge of how to sustain itself. A material born from sand and fire began to reshape how humanity saw the world, both literally and figuratively. In the workshops of ancient Syria, artisans perfected a technique that was nothing short of alchemical glass blowing. By gathering molten glass on the end of a long metal tube, a master could breathe life into the glowing mass, inflating it into a delicate vessel with a control and speed never before possible. This was not just a new method, it was a revolution in production. Suddenly, beautiful and complex glass objects could be created not over days but in minutes. This core technology traveled swiftly along Mediterranean trade routes, carried by the artisans themselves. But the knowledge exchanged was far more than just the secret of the blowpipe. It included the formulas for vibrant colors, using cobalt for deep blues or manganese for rich purples, and the meticulous skills of grinding and polishing glass into lenses. The impact of this migration was profound and multifaceted. In the bustling cities of the Roman Empire, the technology enabled the production of clear window panes, bringing light into homes and public buildings, altering the very experience of indoor space. For scientists and alchemists, glass became an indispensable tool. They now had durable, transparent beakers and flasks that could withstand heat and resist corrosion, allowing them to observe chemical reactions as they happened. This single advancement laid the physical foundation for the entire science of chemistry. And of course, the beautiful glassware itself, from delicate perfume bottles to intricate drinking vessels, became coveted luxury items, status symbols traded from the markets of Venice to the palaces of Northern Europe. The journey of glassmaking knowledge is a perfect example of how artistic skill and technical prowess are inseparable travelers. The same hands that crafted a brilliant blue decorative bowl also held the potential to grind the lens for a future astronomer's telescope. This transparent art carried on trade ships across the sea, did not just create objects, it created new ways of seeing, measuring, and understanding the very fabric of reality. It makes you wonder what modern material, seemingly mundane, might be quietly holding the seeds for the next revolution in human perception. While glassmakers harnessed fire, other engineers learned to capture the wind itself. In the arid plains of Persia and Central Asia, a brilliant adaptation took shape, the vertical axis windmill. Its design was both simple and ingenious, with sails made of bundled reeds or cloth arranged around a central vertical pole. Unlike the later European designs, these mills could catch the wind from any direction, a perfect solution for the variable breezes of the open landscape. They were not towering giants, but practical, robust machines that transformed the relentless desert winds into a relentless, grinding force for milling grain and lifting water from deep wells. This technology was a gift of necessity, born in a land where flowing water was scarce but the air was always moving. The knowledge of how to build these air-powered engines did not remain isolated. It traveled west along the same overland routes that carried spices and silks, moving into the Middle East and North Africa. As the concept migrated, it encountered new mines and new environments. In medieval Europe, particularly in the low-lying, windswept Netherlands, engineers reimagined the design. They developed the horizontal axis windmill, the iconic structure with massive, cloth-covered sails that we picture today. This new form was far more powerful, capable of driving not just millstones but also massive pumps that drained marshlands, literally reclaiming land from the sea. Can you grasp the scale of that transformation? A technology perfected for grinding grain in a dry climate was adapted to hold back the ocean itself, creating new farmland for an entire nation. The windmill became a versatile power plant for pre-industrial society. Beyond grinding and pumping, its turning axle was connected to saws that cut timber, to hammers that crushed seeds for oil, and to bellows that forced air into forges. It provided a source of renewable, mechanical energy that was entirely independent of rivers and streams, enabling economic development in regions waterwheels could never reach. The journey of the windmill from its Persian origins to its European evolution is a powerful testament to shared ingenuity. It was not a single invention, but a concept that was refined and repurposed across cultures, each society adding its own layer of innovation to better harness the invisible, endless power of the air. This silent trade in environmental solutions allowed humanity to tap into the planet's natural rhythms in entirely new ways, setting a quiet precedent for our own quest for sustainable power. The silent exchange of knowledge was not confined to dry land. It was also being hammered and stitched into the very hulls of ships. While the compass gave sailors direction, it was the ship itself that had to withstand the ocean's raw power. In bustling ports from the Arabian Peninsula to the South China Sea, a quiet conversation was happening between master shipwrights, Arab dhow builders with their sleek, nimble vessels designed for the monsoon winds of the Indian Ocean, shared insights with the creators of massive Chinese junks, floating fortresses built for capacity and stability. From these exchanges emerged a suite of transformative innovations. The lateen sail, a triangular marvel, allowed a ship to sail efficiently against the wind, a capability that freed mariners from being mere slaves to prevailing currents. Then came the sternpost rudder, a single, sturdy blade mounted on the back of the ship, which provided unparalleled steering control compared to the older, less effective side-mounted steering oars. This was like the difference between pushing a heavy cart and driving one with a precise wheel. Perhaps the most brilliant safety feature was the Chinese innovation of watertight bulkheads. By dividing the hull into separate compartments with sealed walls, a catastrophic leak in one section could be contained, keeping the entire vessel afloat. This was a life-saving technology of incalculable value. Can you picture the confidence this gave a merchant captain loading his hold with spices and silks? His ship was no longer a fragile shell but a robust, manageable machine capable of venturing farther from any coastline. These combined advancements in hull construction, sail rigging, and navigation did not just improve ships, they redefined the possible. They enabled the establishment of regular, reliable trade routes across the vast expanse of the Indian Ocean, linking the economies of East Africa, Arabia, India, and Southeast Asia into a single, thriving network. This maritime revolution, built on shared engineering, was the essential physical platform that would later carry European caravels around the globe. The trade routes did not just carry goods, they carried the very blueprints for their own expansion, proving that the most enduring connections are built not just on what is traded, but on the shared knowledge of how to travel the distance. A revolution in knowledge began not with a press, but with a single, reusable piece of metal. For centuries, the Chinese had perfected woodblock printing, carving entire pages of text onto a single plank. Then in Korea, scholars pushed the idea further, casting individual characters in metal, creating a set of movable type that could be arranged, inked, and reused to print page after different page. This was the foundational breakthrough, yet for a long time this potential remained locked in the East. The arduous journey of these ideas westward, along the Silk Road and through the Mongol Empire, was slow and fragmented. But the knowledge arrived, carried by merchants and missionaries, eventually reaching the city of Mainz, Germany, where a goldsmith named Johannes Gutenberg was searching for a way to mechanize bookmaking. He did not invent the concept of printing from scratch. He synthesized it. He combined the Eastern idea of movable type with the screw press used for making wine and his own metallurgical skill to create a durable, oil-based ink. The result was the European printing press, a machine that could replicate text with a speed and accuracy the world had never seen. Can you grasp the sheer scale of the change? Before the press, a monastery might take a year to produce a single, flawless copy of the Bible. With Gutenberg's system, hundreds of identical copies could be printed in the same time. The cost of books plummeted. Knowledge was no longer a treasure guarded by a privileged few in silent scriptoriums. It became a commodity that could be owned by a merchant, a doctor, or an aspiring scientist. This was the true explosion. For the first time, a new scientific discovery in Poland could be printed and distributed across Europe in months, not decades, allowing other thinkers to verify, challenge, and build upon it. Religious reformers used the press to translate the Bible into common languages and distribute their arguments directly to the people, fundamentally challenging the authority of the established church and reshaping the spiritual landscape of a continent. The printing press, a technology perfected through a chain of cultural exchange, became the central nervous system for the Renaissance, the Reformation, and the scientific revolution. It created a new reality where ideas could travel faster than the people who held them, proving that the most powerful cargo on any trade route is not a spice or a silk, but a blueprint for sharing thought itself. The same fire that forged metal and blew glass was also taming earth itself. In the kilns of ancient China, potters achieved a kind of perfection, transforming humble clay into a material so fine it seemed to capture light. This was porcelain, a ceramic so hard, so white, and so translucent it rang like a bell when struck. Its creation was a secret locked within a two-step alchemy of earth and fire. First came the clay itself, a rare, pure white kaolin that could withstand immense heat without deforming. Then came the kilns, colossal structures built on hillsides, capable of reaching temperatures that would melt ordinary pottery. Inside these fiery chambers, pots were baked for days and then bathed in secret glazes made from minerals and ash, emerging with a surface as smooth and impermeable as glass. This was not just pottery, it was a technological marvel. When the first pieces of this celestial ware began traveling the Silk Road, they caused a sensation. In the opulent courts of the Ottoman Empire, Chinese porcelain was more valuable than gold, collected in vast treasuries and given its own name, China. In Europe, kings and queens became obsessed, commissioning entire rooms to display their collections of this mysterious white gold. But the trade routes did not just carry the finished bowls and vases, they carried the secrets of their creation. The knowledge of the potter's wheel, a technology that allowed for perfectly symmetrical forms, had already traveled the world for millennia. Now, the deeper secrets of kiln design and glaze chemistry began to seep outward. Persian artisans, masters of their own vibrant tile work, adapted these techniques, creating brilliant blue ceramics that echoed the colors of their own mosques. In Europe, countless experiments tried to crack the code of Chinese porcelain, a quest that eventually led to the creation of Mason porcelain in Germany. This was not mere imitation, it was a conversation in clay. A single Chinese blue and white pattern could inspire a Persian interpretation, which would then influence a Dutch artisan, creating a chain of artistic influence that spanned continents. Can you see the dinner table of a wealthy family in London, set with fine porcelain from the other side of the world? This was more than a status symbol, it was a quiet revolution in daily life. Porcelain was chemically inert. It did not impart a metallic taste like pewter or corrode like wood. It allowed for the safe, long-term storage of food and liquids, and its smooth surface made it easy to clean, subtly elevating standards of hygiene and the very ritual of dining. The global hunger for these ceramics created one of history's first luxury brands and fueled a continuous exchange of aesthetic ideas and chemical knowledge. The journey of ceramic technology proves that some of the most enduring connections between cultures were not written on paper, but fired in a kiln, a beautiful and practical bond sealed in glaze and clay. A merchant in a bustling Roman port or a crowded Chinese market faced a universal challenge, the need for swift, accurate calculation. With a dozen different currencies and languages swirling around him, how could he possibly keep track of his deals? His answer was not a written ledger, but a physical one, a frame strung with beads that slid smoothly on wires or grooves. This was the abacus, a pocket-sized engine for the mind. Its true genius was its independence from any single language. The logic was built into the layout, a place value system made tangible. A merchant who spoke only Latin could negotiate a price with a trader who spoke only Mandarin, and when the final number was agreed upon, they could both confirm it on their own identical devices, moving beads to represent units, tens, and hundreds. The abacus provided a universal visual language for numbers, a common ground where trust could be built on the solid click of a bead. This tool did not simply spread from one place to another. It emerged in brilliant parallel across the ancient world, from the dusty counting boards of Mesopotamia to the sophisticated suanpan of China. Its design was refined and shared along trade routes, becoming an indispensable companion for anyone dealing in goods, taxes, or loans. Can you hear the rhythmic clicking in a noisy bazaar, the sound of commerce itself being tallied? The abacus was more than a calculator, it was a teacher. It made abstract mathematical concepts like carrying and borrowing into a physical, intuitive action, fostering a basic numeracy that was essential for economic life. A child learning to use an abacus was not just memorizing numbers, they were internalizing the very logic of arithmetic. This shared computational tool quietly built a foundation of financial literacy that spanned continents. enabling the complex bookkeeping that global trade required. It proved that the most effective bridges between cultures are often not spoken, but built from simple, elegant ideas that anyone, anywhere, can understand with their hands. A new kind of wealth began to sprout from the earth itself, a wealth measured not in coins but in bushels of grain. The quiet migration of advanced farming knowledge along trade routes would ultimately determine which societies could thrive. For centuries, European farmers had relied on the two-field system, leaving half their land fallow each year to recover its strength. It was a cautious practice, but it wasted precious soil. Then, through contact with the more agriculturally sophisticated Islamic world and the distant innovations of China, a new idea took root: the three-field system. This was a brilliant piece of crop rotation. Instead of two fields, a farmer divided his land into three. One section was planted with wheat or rye in the autumn, a second with oats or barley in the spring, and the third was left fallow. The following year, the crops would rotate. This simple reorganization had a cascading effect. It meant that 2/3 of the land was productive every year, not just half, leading to an immediate surge in food output. But the magic was in the details. The spring planting often included legumes like peas and beans, crops that naturally restored nitrogen to the tired soil, acting as a natural fertilizer. This was a self-sustaining cycle of renewal. Can you picture the transformation of the medieval landscape, where fields that once lay empty now teemed with life, their bounty increased by 1/3 without any new land being plowed? This was just one thread in a vast tapestry of exchanged agricultural wisdom. Alongside crop rotation traveled the knowledge of sophisticated irrigation, the selective breeding of hardier livestock, and the use of specific fertilizers like manure and compost. A merchant caravan might carry sacks of a new, drought-resistant strain of wheat from Central Asia, while a traveling scholar could bring a translated text on grafting fruit trees from Persia. This was the silent, continuous transfer of survival technology. The impact was nothing short of revolutionary. A single farming family could now produce a significant surplus of food. This surplus was the bedrock of everything that followed. It meant that not everyone had to farm. This surplus grain could feed artisans crafting tools in towns, merchants managing long-distance trade, and soldiers defending borders. It allowed for the growth of cities, the specialization of labor, and the flourishing of arts and sciences. The economic foundation of entire kingdoms was quietly rebuilt, field by field, by the shared knowledge of how to make the land provide more generously. The most powerful cargo on those ancient routes was often not a luxury good, but a simple, life-giving idea for what to plant next. A simple curved shape held up empires. The arch was more than a doorway, it was a fundamental reinvention of how to build. While the Greeks and Etruscans had used the form, Roman engineers turned it into a structural revolution. They understood that an arch, built from a keystone and wedge-shaped voussoirs, did something miraculous. It channeled immense weight downward and outward into its supporting pillars, allowing for the creation of vast, open spaces without collapsing under their own mass. This was the key to their monumental infrastructure. They used this principle to stack arches into the soaring, gravity-defying aqueducts that carried fresh water for miles across valleys, and to build bridges of such strength that some still carry traffic today. But the Romans did not stop there. By extending the arch through space, they created the barrel vault, a long, tunnel-like ceiling. By intersecting two barrel vaults at right angles, they formed the groin vault, which could cover a wider area with less material. And by rotating an arch around its central point, they achieved the ultimate expression of the form, the magnificent dome, a technique that would culminate in the breathtaking ceiling of the Pantheon. This entire architectural toolkit, this knowledge of how to shape stone and concrete to defy gravity, did not remain within the borders of the empire. It traveled. As Roman legions marched, they built, leaving behind bridges and aqueducts that served as permanent textbooks in stone. As merchants traveled the empire's roads, they carried the concepts of these designs with them. The knowledge of vaulting and dome construction seeped into the architectural traditions of the Byzantine Empire, where it would be used to create the vast, heavenly interior of the Hagia Sophia, its central dome seeming to float on a ring of light. Centuries later, Islamic architects adopted and refined the pointed arch, a design that distributed weight even more efficiently, allowing for taller, more slender structures and the intricate, star-shaped vaults that adorn countless mosques. In Europe, this inherited engineering knowledge became the skeleton of the great Gothic cathedrals, where the pointed arch and the flying buttress worked in concert to lift stone ceilings to unprecedented heights, creating forests of stone and walls of stained glass. Can you stand in such a space and feel the sheer ambition it represents? The arch was a universal language of strength and beauty. A cathedral in France, a mosque in Iran, and a palace in India, though separated by vast distances and different faiths, all shared this common structural DNA, a technological heirloom passed from one civilization to the next along the routes of trade and cultural contact. This was not merely the transfer of a style, but the migration of a core understanding of physics and material, an idea that allowed humanity to build its grandest dreams in stone and have them endure for millennia. It makes you look at every curved bridge and grand hallway with new respect, wondering what simple, elegant principle we use today might be holding up our own modern world. A soldier wounded on a distant Roman frontier might owe his survival to a surgical procedure perfected in India. The vast networks of trade carried more than luxuries. They functioned as a circulatory system for the most vital knowledge of all, the art of healing. Greek medical texts filled with the theories of Hippocrates and Galen traveled eastward into the heart of the Islamic world. There, in great centers of learning like Baghdad and Cordoba, scholars translated and studied them, but they did not accept them blindly. They compared these Greek ideas with the detailed anatomical charts and complex pharmaceutical recipes arriving from India, and with the diagnostic techniques of pulse reading and herbal medicine coming from China. This was not a simple transfer of information, it was a grand synthesis. Physicians began to see the human body through multiple lenses, creating a more complete and effective medical science. The tools of the healer traveled these routes as well. Precise steel surgical instruments, forged in Indian workshops and including scalpels, forceps, and bone saws of designs still recognizable today, were traded and adopted. The knowledge of how to use them, techniques for setting bones, removing cataracts, and even performing early forms of plastic surgery, moved with them. Can you picture the scene in a medieval Islamic hospital, a revolutionary institution born from this shared knowledge? A patient could be diagnosed using Chinese pulse theory, treated with an antiseptic wound paste from an Indian formula, and then have a complex fracture set using a Greek method with an Indian-designed tool. This was a global standard of care centuries before the concept existed. Pharmacies stocked myrrh from Arabia, ginger from Southeast Asia, and opium from the Eastern Mediterranean, their uses and dosages carefully recorded in encyclopedias that blended traditions. This silent, continuous collaboration in medicine did more than cure individual ailments, it built systems. It led to the establishment of the first true hospitals with separate wards, the licensing of physicians, and the implementation of public health measures like sanitation and quarantine. The life expectancy in a city benefiting from this pooled knowledge was undoubtedly higher than in one isolated from it. The quest for health proved to be a powerful, unifying human endeavor, a reminder that the most profound technology exchanged on those ancient roads was not for building empires, but for preserving the very lives that populated them. This deep history of shared healing makes you wonder what medical breakthroughs of our own time, born from global collaboration, will one day be seen as the foundational care of a new era. Across the vast, sun-scorched sea of sand, another saddle was quietly changing the world. This was not the stirrup of the warrior, but the pack saddle of the trader, a masterpiece of practical engineering designed for the ship of the desert. The Berber peoples of North Africa did not simply put loads on camels. They perfected specialized saddles that transformed the camel from a beast of burden into a long-haul freight vehicle. One design cradled heavy sacks of salt and gold, distributing the weight perfectly to prevent injury during month-long treks. Another, more fearsome design created a stable fighting platform for desert warriors, turning the camel into a mobile fortress. This was technology tailored for an extreme environment, and its impact was immediate and profound. These saddles made the impossible journey across the Sahara a regular, reliable enterprise. Can you envision the caravan, a line of hundreds of camels moving like a slow river through the dunes, their silhouettes etched against the setting sun? They were not just carrying goods, they were carrying destinies. On their backs rode the salt so precious to West African kingdoms and the gold so coveted by Mediterranean empires. But more than that, they carried ideas. Islamic scholarship traveled south along with copper and cloth, while the artistic and cultural traditions of powerful states like Ghana and Mali traveled north. The camel saddle did not just move objects across a desert. It stitched together the disparate edges of the known world, creating a direct link between sub-Saharan Africa and the global network of trade. This was a conquest not by the sword, but by the strap and the buckle, a quiet demonstration that the right tool in the right place could dissolve the most formidable geographical barriers and write a new chapter of human connection. Deep beneath the mountains of Roman Spain, a relentless rhythm echoed through dark tunnels, the sound of hammers striking iron wedges driven into solid rock. This was the sound of industrial-scale extraction, a symphony of organized labor made possible by a fusion of borrowed technologies. The Romans were masters of adoption, not just invention. They encountered sophisticated mining methods from the Egyptians, who had pioneered deep shaft mining for gold in Nubia, and from the Greeks, who had developed advanced silver mines at Laurium. The Romans did not simply copy these ideas, they scaled them into a system of unprecedented efficiency. To reach the richest veins, they constructed complex drainage machines, massive water-lifting wheels powered by treadmills that kept deep pits from flooding. They carved intricate ventilation shafts that funneled fresh air down to miners laboring by the faint light of oil lamps, preventing suffocation and allowing work to continue for miles underground. Above all, they perfected ore processing, using crushing mills and a series of washing tables to separate precious metal from tons of worthless stone with meticulous precision. This entire technological package did not remain a Roman secret. It traveled along the very trade routes that carried the copper, tin, and silver it produced. The knowledge of how to sink a stable shaft, how to brace tunnels against collapse, and how to smelt purer metals spread from Britain to the Black Sea. Can you grasp the chain reaction this set in motion? Reliable access to vast quantities of metal meant a state could mint millions of identical, trusted coins, creating a uniform currency that lubricated trade across continents. It meant armies could be equipped with standardized, high-quality weapons and armor, projecting imperial power over vast distances. It meant artisans had the bronze and iron to create the specialized tools that built cities and farmed fields. The control of mining technology became synonymous with economic and military dominance. A kingdom with access to these advanced extraction methods could literally forge its own destiny from the earth, its wealth and power rooted in the shared, underground knowledge of how to unlock the planet's hidden treasures. This silent exchange of subterranean skills proves that the foundations of empire were often dug from the ground up, with the pickaxes of one culture sharpened by the wisdom of many. The ocean's endless pulse became an engine. Along the coastlines of medieval Europe, from the shores of Britain to the inlets of France, engineers built a new kind of mill that did not wait for rain or a flowing river. They built tidal mills, vast water wheels powered not by the current of a stream, but by the relentless, predictable rhythm of the sea itself. These structures were marvels of timing and hydraulics. A dam or a pond was constructed to capture seawater at high tide. As the tide receded, the only escape for this captured ocean was through a channel fitted with a water wheel. The outgoing rush of water turned the massive wheel, which then drove the millstones to grind grain day after day, powered by the moon's own gravitational pull. This was a profound leap in thinking, a conscious decision to harness an environmental cycle itself as a source of power. The knowledge of how to build these mills traveled not over land, but along the very maritime trade routes they often served. A ship carrying timber from Scandinavia might also carry a shipwright who had seen the clever gate mechanisms of a mill in Normandy. A merchant from Venice might share sketches of a tidal mill's sluice design with a harbour master in Dublin. This shared engineering allowed coastal communities without access to strong rivers to develop their own industrial power. A small village on a windswept English coast could now grind its own flour reliably, its economic fortunes lifted by the daily rise and fall of the sea. Can you hear the groaning of those great wooden wheels turning in perfect sync with the ocean? This was one of humanity's earliest and most direct engagements with renewable energy, a clear understanding that the planet offered its power in cycles, not just in finite resources. The tidal mill stands as a quiet testament to an ancient form of sustainability, a technology that listened to the rhythm of the earth and found a way to make it work. It makes you wonder what other natural rhythms we are only now learning to harness, what endless, pulsing power we have yet to fully understand. The steady drip of a water clock in Egypt and the slow burn of a marked candle in China were both attempts to answer the same universal question: what time is it? These early devices, born in isolation, began to cross paths as merchants and scholars traveled. An Arab engineer might study a Greek clepsydra or water thief and add a complex float mechanism that could trigger bells to mark the passing hours. This idea could then travel east, inspiring a Chinese artisan to create a monumental water-driven armillary sphere that mapped the heavens in real time. The real breakthrough, however, was the mechanical escapement, a device that regulated the release of a clock's power, transforming a frantic unwinding into a steady, measured tick-tock. This foundational concept likely migrated from the Byzantine Empire into medieval Europe, where it was paired with another traded innovation: intricate gear systems originally developed for astronomical models. Suddenly, time was no longer a vague flow measured by shadows or draining water. It was a mechanical certainty. Can you hear the first public clock towers beginning to chime in European town squares, their sound synchronizing the daily rhythm of an entire community for the first time? This shared horological knowledge created a silent, common framework for human endeavor. In a monastery, bells calling monks to prayer now rang with precise regularity. In a bustling port, sailors could coordinate their departures with the tides far more accurately. For scientists like Galileo, the ability to measure tiny fractions of time with improved devices allowed him to calculate the swing of a pendulum, laying the groundwork for entirely new laws of physics. The merchant, the priest, and the astronomer now all inhabited the same measured timeline, their lives increasingly governed by a technology whose components had been assembled from the workshops of multiple civilizations. This was the ultimate hidden network, one that traded not in spices or silk, but in seconds and minutes, quietly weaving the disparate threads of daily life into a synchronized tapestry. It makes you wonder what invisible framework we are building right now, a system future generations might see as the clockwork that silently ordered our world. A clear liquid drips slowly into a waiting flask, carrying the concentrated essence of 1,000 rose petals. In the laboratories of Arab and Persian alchemists, a new kind of magic was being perfected, one that would unlock the hidden spirits within matter itself. This was the art of distillation, a chemical process that would travel the world and reshape medicine, pleasure, and science. At its heart was the alembic still, a beautifully simple apparatus of a heated pot and a cooled condensing head. By boiling a mixture and then carefully capturing and cooling the vapors, these early chemists could separate a substance into its purest parts. They were not merely making perfume, they were learning to speak the secret language of chemistry. The knowledge of how to build and operate these stills did not remain a secret for long. It flowed along the same trade routes that carried the very spices and flowers the alchemists sought to transform. The intricate glassware designs from the Middle East traveled to the monastic laboratories of medieval Europe, where they were used to distill alcohol into aqua vitae, the water of life. This strong, concentrated spirit was initially prized as a medicine, a miraculous elixir believed to cure all ailments, but its use quickly expanded. Can you envision the bustling port of Venice, where merchants traded not only in silks but in delicate glass vials of rosewater and citrus oils, their scents a testament to this chemical craft? The impact of this shared technology was profound and multifaceted. In the Arab world, it advanced pharmacy, creating pure essential oils and medicinal tinctures. In Europe, it led to the production of brandy and whiskey, commodities that would themselves become major items of global trade. The very process of distillation provided chemists with a powerful new tool for analysis, allowing them to isolate and identify pure compounds for the first time. This was more than a recipe, it was a fundamental method that accelerated the entire field of chemistry. The journey of the distillation apparatus proves that some of the most transformative trades were invisible, a silent exchange of process and principle that allowed every culture it touched to unlock new potentials from the natural world. It makes you wonder what simple process we use today, perhaps in a kitchen or a garage, that holds the seed of a future revolution waiting to be distilled. Silk was merely the glittering surface of a far deeper exchange. For every bolt of fabric that made its way from China to Rome, a dozen invisible ideas were traveling alongside it, hitching rides in the minds of merchants, scholars, and refugees. This sprawling network of trails and ports was the Internet of the ancient world, a technological superhighway where the most valuable cargo was knowledge itself. A new design for a harness perfected in Central Asia could find its way to a European farmstead within a generation. A mathematical formula scribbled in an Indian observatory could be debated by scholars in Baghdad a century later. This was not a simple one-way street from east to west, but a vibrant, multi-directional conversation. The paper you learned about earlier did not just appear in the Islamic world by chance. It was deliberately sought out and adopted after travelers reported its use in Chinese bureaucracy. The secrets of steelmaking, the designs for windmills, and the principles of advanced astronomy all flowed through these channels, creating a shared technological commons that lifted entire regions. Why did a society on one end of the world prosper while another stagnated? Often, the difference was not native genius, but simply being connected to the right trade route. A civilization's greatest asset was its access to this river of ideas, its ability to listen, adapt, and improve upon the innovations of others. This constant, silent collaboration is what truly built the ancient world, proving that a road can carry more than merchants and camels, it can carry the future itself. These scattered stories of stirrups and sugar, of paper and porcelain, are not isolated chapters. They are all part of a single, grand narrative of human advancement. The journey of these 24 technologies reveals a fundamental truth. Progress is almost never a solo invention. It is a chorus of voices echoing across continents. Each innovation you have heard about did not spring from a vacuum. It was a spark that traveled along the trade routes, a spark that was then fanned into a flame by the hands of another culture. These routes were far more than commercial highways. They were the world's first and most vital internet, a live network for the transfer of knowledge itself. This process of technological diffusion gave every connected civilization a cumulative advantage. A society did not have to spend centuries struggling to invent the compass or perfect steelmaking if it could learn from a neighbor who already had. It could take that borrowed knowledge, adapt it to local needs, and then improve upon it, creating a new version that would then be sent back along the network for others to use. The waterwheel, refined by the Romans, powered medieval European industry. The mathematical zero, born in India, enabled the scientific breakthroughs of Renaissance Europe. This was not theft, it was collaboration on a global scale, often happening without the collaborators even knowing each other's names. The constant, silent exchange of solutions to common problems, from how to build a stable arch to how to purify sugar, created a shared technological foundation that lifted all of humanity. Our modern world, with its interconnected economies and shared scientific language, is the direct heir to this ancient system. The story of our species is not one of walls and isolation, but of roads and connection. Every time we use a number, sail a boat, or read a book, we are touching the legacy of that forgotten network, a powerful reminder that our greatest achievements have always been, and will always be, a collective endeavor. Our journey through these 24 hidden technologies reveals a profound truth. The ancient world was far more interconnected than we often imagine. Trade routes functioned as invisible universities, a continuous global classroom where the most valuable commodity was never a spice or a gem, but knowledge itself. From the stirrup that revolutionized warfare to the paper that democratized learning, these were not isolated triumphs. They were links in a chain of silent collaboration that spanned centuries and crossed every cultural boundary. This constant, quiet exchange of solutions built the very foundations of our modern civilization. It reminds us that human progress has never been a solitary race, but a relay. Each civilization took the baton of innovation from the one before it, ran its own leg of the journey, and then passed it forward, often to a rival or a stranger. This shared technological heritage transcends our modern divisions of nation and culture, proving that the walls we build are far less enduring than the bridges we have always forged. Let this exploration inspire you to look beyond the surface of history, to search for the hidden connections in the everyday objects and ideas that surround you. They are the living legacy of that ancient network. We would love to hear which of these forgotten technologies surprised you the most. Share your thoughts in the comments below and subscribe for more journeys into the world's deepest historical